My name is Adger Drummond. I'll be running for your student body treasurer this year. A little bit about myself first off so you can understand my qualifications for the job. Right now I'm a senator at USC. I serve on the Inclusion and Equity Committee, and I also serve as vice chair of the Finance Committee. And that being vice chair of the Finance Committee is where I get my experience to be treasurer, most of it. On the Finance Committee, we're allocated. The Senate Finance Committee is in charge of roughly $180,000, and what we do is we allocate that money back to student organizations. So every Friday we have finance meetings where student orgs will come in, and they'll request money to go to different conferences or have different events or different things like that. And based on the information that they give us, we decide whether we're going to give them full allocation, partial allocation, or no allocation. And those decisions are based solely off of the code. So it's not opinion based, it's based off of the codes. And we give them as much as we can give them. I think one of the main things that a treasurer should keep in mind is the ability he has, or she, to help students directly and monetarily. So the cornerstone of the Treasury's campaign for Ford, my campaign, is the implementation of a program called the Carolina Entrepreneurship Organization. And this organization right here will, students who have their own business, services, or brand, whether they be photographers, whether they be graphic designers, whether they be personal trainers, no matter what your field is, no matter whether you be a journalist, but you can join this organization, and through that organization you can be introduced to different networking events. What a lot of people don't know is that we're sending people to LA, we're sending people to New York, we're sending people to Washington, D.C. We're paying for their hotels, their flights, their gas, their mileage. And if you have events on campus, we're paying for the food, we're paying for all of that. So I thought when I joined Finance Committee, I was like, this is a lot of money that we're dealing with. How can we use this money and best utilize it to actually help the student? And I thought about this organization that could be implemented, made sure it would abide by all the codes and make sure it wouldn't be some type of organization that really didn't work in the long run. But basically what students could do is they could be introduced to these different networks and different conferences and things like that. And when they go to these conferences, they wouldn't be solely a representative of the University of South Carolina, but they'd be a representative for themselves. So basically what that does with their entrepreneurship or business or service, it expands their base, it gets them more known, and when they get out of college, they'll already have those connects which they need to make in order to grow their business even more. And I don't know if you guys caught on, but it's called the Carolina Entrepreneurship Organization, aka CEO. One of the other things that I want to work on with finance is the New Initiative Fund. The New Initiative Fund is a great account, and I think to fully understand it, you got to understand that the Treasurer's Office is in charge of 4 different accounts. You have the Freshman Council account, you have the Operations Budget, which is where the New Initiative is found, and the Operations Budget just basically oversees student government, and you have the Undergraduate Organizations account, and you also have the Elections Commissions account, which is roughly $7,000, but that's just for elections. And so the New Initiative Fund is just a small amount of money. I think at its peak this year it was like $6,000, but it's a small amount of money for students who have different initiatives within student government, of course, for different new initiatives and things like that in there. But the problem that we ran into it with this year is that there's no description as to the requirements for you to draw this money out. So people were drawing money out of the New Initiative Fund with initiatives that had already been in place. There was no description, no requirements of what you needed in order to draw money out of this account. So that's one thing that's going to have to be implemented. And we're working on that in the Senate right now. But as treasurer, it'll be solidified by me if I'm elected, God willing. So basically, it'll set requirements of who can use this money and what can they use this money for to make sure it's properly used in the right place. Another big thing of mine is comptrollers. So many organizations, the University of South Carolina, we have about 529 organizations, 530 round up. And we have 4 comptrollers for all those organizations. So that equals out to 132 organizations per comptroller. And 132 organizations is a lot to manage for one person to manage anybody. So we're looking at upping the number because you can have from 4 to 10. We have the minimum number, though we had more applications than 10. I don't understand why we have only 4 comptrollers, but up that number to 10, and that'll make it where it's more so around 50 organizations per comptroller. And the problem that lies with that is transparency between comptrollers and their organizations. So basically, a comptroller is a catalyst to the Treasury's office for organizations, which means the comptroller gives the organizations all the information they need to know. The comptroller should be able to share the guidelines and what they can request and how much they can request. But there seems to be some type of lack of transparency there right now, because when people come in the finance committee and they don't have their paperwork done, they don't have their receipts or proper documentation, and we sit here and we ask them, have you had any contact with your comptroller? They say, what is a comptroller? Or they say, no, I haven't had any contact. Most of the time when people come in the finance meeting, they don't have their things in order. That's what they say. So basically, there has to be some type of mandated understanding between organizations and their comptrollers about what exactly a comptroller is and the role that they should play to the organization. So there just needs to be more transparency there.
I wanted to kind of just open it up for some questions.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a question about the CEO of your
Mm-hmm.
organization. How would you be able to benefit students going into, the start of your term? Do you have people lined up that are ready to
Mm-hmm.
help? Do you have, background, especially dealing with so many different students and backgrounds? Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel that the diversity of, different majors and jobs will be kind of difficult?
Okay, yeah. So basically how the organization would work is once you join the organization, you'll be placed into a faction. You'll be placed into a category. So if you do photography and you do graphic design, you guys would be in the same category to go on the same conferences, because your entrepreneurships match up and are synonymous, or not synonymous, but they're similar. If you do personal training and you do fitness videos, you guys would be synonymous in going to the conference for that. So basically, it wouldn't matter what major you are, because there's only a set number amount of categories. And like I say, no matter what your profession is, no matter what you want to do, you'll be able to come into the organization. You'll be able to benefit from the organization. Another point of our campaign is an initiative called Carolina Gets Hired. And basically what that is it's an initiative to help students from all majors with professionalism. So different resume workshops or cocktail dinners, etiquette dinners, mentorship programs and things like that, LinkedIn workshops. It'll work side and side with that, so it can benefit all students and also get them ready for professionalism after they graduate by preparing them in college. But one thing is that as far as it goes with how it would work, it'll be smooth. It'll go smooth, because with the implementation of the transparency of comptrollers and having them understand the organizations and having the organizations understand them, it'll make it more smooth for all organizations, especially CEO, to be able to do things that they need to do for the students that are for the members.
With CEO, will students have to find their own conferences to go to? Will there be a certain group of committee members maybe that are in charge of finding, assigned to a faction that are assigned to finding? How are the opportunities presented to students?
So I thought about this also. So basically how that would work is when students enter the enter CEO, there has to be some type of foundation laid. You're not going to just pop up with an organization and it's going to just boom. There has to be some foundation laid. So the students who come in, they'll be more so synonymous to a committee chair. Those will be the people with their faction of people who have similar entrepreneurships or services. Those will be the people responsible for talking to everyone in that faction to see which network I'm sorry, not network, to see which conference best suits them. You don't want to relegate it to say this is where you're going to go, this is where you want to go, this is where you're going to go. You want the purpose of CEO is to give students freedom to be able to expand their own base by providing them the tools in which to expand them. CEO isn't going to give the students everything that they need, but it's going to give them the tools so students can have everything that they need.
You did mention the initiative Carolina Gets Hired.
Mm-hmm.
With initiatives like that, I don't know if this has been a thought that, because it's kind of a more minor question,
Mm-hmm.
would you solicit help from already existing
Absolutely.
organizations on campus like the Career Center to kind of have a boosting
Mm-hmm.
there as well?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. The point of nothing in our campaign was meant to step on any toes or overshadow any organization or club. Last night I got the opportunity to speak with the president of the entrepreneurship club on campus, and we were talking about collaboration between us. So basically we are willing to work with any group of people, anyone, in order to achieve the goal, but the point is to achieve the goal. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
And just going back to the new initiative fund,
Yes, sir.
you talked about having it be a more clear guidelines of when you
Mhm.
can take out money,
Mhm.
and just that and transparency. How are you going to change that, especially given the events that transpired last semester with that fund?
Mhm. Okay, so one of the biggest things when it pertains to transparency is showing people exactly what's in the account. So basically what I proposed as far as transparency with the new initiative account and the undergraduate organizations account is to, since we switched over from SOS to Garnet Gate last year, and this is our first year on Garnet Gate. So basically, why don't we have somewhere on Garnet Gate where students who are in Student Gov and outside of Student Gov, maybe the students outside of Student Gov can't see the new initiative fund, but they'd be able to see the undergraduate organizations fund and see how much money is left in it and see what's been used with that, where it started, where it's at now. And with the new initiative fund, those students in student government should have clear access and transparent access to be able to see what's in that account at all times. Because I'm in Senate right now, and the only way I know what's in the new initiative account is because I'm on the finance committee and I have admin access. That's the only reason why. But the other senators in there who are on safety and transportation or athletic committee, they're not really able to see the new initiative fund. They can request to see it, but I don't think we even need to be able to request to see it. We should just be able to go and see it so we can see what's going on.
You talked a little bit about your experience that you've had
Mhm.
already in the organization, but what specific things do you think really qualify you to be able to step up, I guess?
Okay.
in the
So
situation?
I think that any student exec position, student government exec position, requires two things, especially I guess if we're going to specify it to the treasurer's position. It requires two things. It requires experience in leadership and experience in finance. As far as leadership is concerned, I've been doing student government for a while. I was junior senator of my high school. I leveled up and became student body president of my high school. Here, I've had the privilege to participate in student gov here and be a senator. I've had the opportunities to be the citizen of the year. I've had different opportunities to lead and to voice my opinion for others and represent others in an adequate way. Monetarily, my financial background, first off, we're all college students, so I manage my own finances. That's first off. That doesn't qualify me for the job, but I'm just gonna throw that out there. I manage my own finances. My mom and dad don't pay for anything, so it was always up to me to manage my own finances. But working with the treasurer's office and working and being the vice chair, working my way up to be the vice chair of the finance committee, gave me a direct access to the largest account that the treasurer oversees. Because like I told you, it's roughly $180,000 at the beginning of the year. And when you got that type of responsibility on your back and you go into a boardroom basically and you're sitting in a chair, people are coming in and requesting money from you, you know what I mean? And you got to look at the codes and all these other things. it gives you a real sense of understanding of the job, because when you have a budget, you have to be frugal in a way, because you don't want to run out of money. That's just the wrong thing to do. But you also don't want to not use the money in order to save it when it can be put to use and it can benefit somebody. So I think the two main experiences that are necessary for the job are leadership and finance, and I think that I am the most qualified for the job out of those running for treasurer.
As somebody who manages his own finances, I'm sure you have a solid idea of what things you need and what things you want, what things you don't need, what things you don't want. You're a good budgeter, I presume.
Mhm.
So do you sort of already have like an idea of where our funds should go? Like what sort of initiatives, like safety versus food or like whatever, like do you already have an idea if you were elected of where it's important to put money and where it's not so important to put money?
Right, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think one of the most important things is when you're making a budget, budgets aren't easy to make.
Right.
But when you're making a budget, the way I've always made a budget is you start with the necessities. You start with what you need. Boom.
Yep.
It's not what you want. You first start with what you need. And when you see what you need and you got everything that you need, then you look at things that also may be kind of needed, but not really. And then you'll shift over to things that you want. And things that you want, maybe not things that are so popular, but you have what you need. You have the foundation done. The way I look at it, if you're staying by yourself in a house and you're paying your own bills, and you got paid yesterday, you got $500 in your account. The power bill comes out, it's $200. Phone bill comes out, it's $200. Not phone bill. So you got two options. You can pay your bills and have $100 left over to spend, or you can go on a vacation because your buddy just hit you up and said, hey, let's go on a vacation this weekend. But when you come back, your lights ain't gonna be on. So it's important to manage the things that you need first and then faction out into what you want.
That being said, do you have an opinion on campaign spending caps?
Yeah, absolutely.
What would that opinion be?
I think that there's definitely, I wouldn't say that it's fair. I wouldn't say that the system is set up to be fair, honestly. Because a lot of these students who run these campaigns, their parents are paying for everything, but my parents don't pay for anything. So everything that I had to pay for my campaign came out of my pocket, and I felt every bit of it, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that there needs to be some type of cap, and I have actually looked into that already as a senator. So we may get something drafted up on that before our term is over. But if not, God willing, I'm permitted to be treasurer, then something definitely will be done about that.
If nothing was done about that, do you think, how important would it be to you for at least transparency of how much you're spending on a campaign?
I'm not opposed to it at all, because you hear these crazy stories about people spending $10,000 on a college campaign, but those are students usually most of the time who aren't really paying for it themselves. They're getting the money from elsewhere. So students who aren't able to get that money from elsewhere don't have an adequate shot at the position in a way. And I'm not gonna say they don't have an adequate shot, because anything can happen, but they don't have necessarily an adequate shot at the office because they don't have access to those funds. So a spending cap definitely would not be a bad thing at all, and I wouldn't be opposed to it at all. I think it's a good idea.
If for some, like there wasn't, like the legislation didn't pass for like a spending cap, do you think in terms of transparency, that candidates should disclose how much they're spending on their
Yeah, that's what I
campaigns?
was gonna say.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Cool. Follow-up question.
Do you think that the transparency and communication between executive members and the media, so basically us, could improve for this upcoming school year?
Absolutely.
How would you like to see that improve?
Well, the Daily Gamecock is at Senate. They're at Senate sessions, but in my opinion, honestly, from a senator's point of view, Senate is the polished outcome, in a way. It's the rough polished outcome, but I think the Daily Gamecock needs to more so infiltrate different, I think Daily Gamecock needs to more so infiltrate like the internal processes of things.
Right.
I think Daily Gamecock needs to have stronger relationships with both exec members, Senate members, and I think that the relationship needs to be not necessarily a relationship to where you guys don't do your job, but I think there needs to be more transparency and more understandings of who each other are. Because I haven't seen anybody in this room before, not, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
But you guys work with the Daily Gamecock, and then I've been featured in Daily Gamecock a couple of times, but there needs to be some type of transparency because I know you guys work hard. You guys work real hard. You know what I mean? And we also work really hard. So when there is a level of transparency that's not there, there's a lack of transparency, it creates for an atmosphere that's toxic eventually. And one thing's gonna get said about somebody that somebody's not gonna like, and they're gonna have this attitude about so and so. So if we just transparent with each other and we really try to actually take the initiative and get to know one another just a little bit more, not to say you gotta be best friends, but just understand and know who these people are. Introduce yourselves. We need to introduce ourselves more, and we need to embrace the Daily Gamecock. I think that's one big thing. We need to actually embrace y'all for doing you guys' job rather than trying to make it seem like the Daily Gamecock is out to get student government, which is what people do sometimes. But
well, and you said you want to improve it, but what are some ways that you think it could actually be improved? Like, what are some things you could implement to actually make sure that happens?
the transparency between Daily Gamecock and student government. What do you think about a weekly report from student government to the Daily Gamecock? That tells you what we've been doing, and if you want to look further into it, then you can. You have the information in front of you, but if you want to look further, then of course you can come see us. Because if the transparency works out and we do actually get to meet one another and we can at least be on a first name basis, then you can always come talk to anyone in the office, anyone in Senate. And since there is a weekly report, you can know what to ask for instead of anyone trying to dig for information. You already know what's going on. Make it transparent, make it honest.
If elected, is that something you would actually push?
Yes, I'm not any type of like super political figure. I'm just Adger Drummond. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to give any type of politically correct answers, but this is honest what I feel like needs to be done in the job.
All of us are just students, right?
Yeah, right.
Anybody?
Okay, well, I'll bring it to accountability. Let's say, maybe someone on your staff is not responsive or fails to live up to what you believe their duty should be. How would you handle that and hold them accountable to their position?
So, are you referencing like if a comptroller isn't doing their job?
Yeah, comptroller, your chief of staff, anyone, or even yourself.
Well, if I'm not doing the job, I'll step down. But that's not going to happen because I'm going to do my job if elected. But no, I think that when you get in a situation where you have someone who you've appointed and they turn out not to be doing their job correctly, put somebody in a position that's going to do the job correctly. The goal is not to be friends. The goal is to be friends, but the goal is not to be friends with those who you work with. The goal is to get the job done and to get the job done efficiently. So if people aren't doing their jobs, you can say something to them, and if they still don't do their jobs, what happens in the real world? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think anyone has any more questions.
Is there anything we didn't cover with you that you was just been itching to to pitch?
One thing that also I want to do with the Treasury's office is it's real important to me that though we're in college and we have a lot going on, we got a lot of stress, and this is for anybody of any major, I don't care who you are, but it's important for us that we understand and acknowledge that we can do for other people. It's always a group of people who you can do something for. So, and not just relegated to campus, but like outside of campus. different things that you can be doing that you don't even know you can do. Right now, I'm an MRC, and you don't have to write this down, but right now I'm an MRC tutor at an elementary school. So 2 times a week, I go to Pontiac Elementary School, and students who have trouble reading, doing math, learning, behavioral issues, a lot of behavioral issues. Basically what MRC is connected with United Way of the Midlands, which is a nonprofit organization stationed here in Columbia. And going in, and they're all Title I schools, so the kids are usually from great poverty or not wealthy at all. But just doing simple things like that as a college student, you don't understand it. We're actually giving back when we do things like that to the community, even though we're not monetarily doing it. The best thing that you can give somebody is your time, because that's priceless. But you know, I think that's important that we all understand that we can do for others, whether they be kids, whether they be grown-ups. But if you can do something for somebody else in life, not just in college, but in life, you know what I mean? That's pretty much what we all need to be. And if we all can do something for somebody else in life, then we've done our job. You're able to die with a clean conscience. Not to talk about death, but die with a clean conscience. You're able to say that you fulfilled your job here, because that's what life is about, in my opinion. It's about helping somebody else along the way. This is a journey, you know what I mean? It's a marathon, not a race.
Well, I don't think we all introduced ourselves, and you said you hadn't seen any of us before, so I hope, you know, no matter what happens in this election, you know, you get to know us, and we get to know you a little bit better.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate you coming in, man.
Appreciate it. Can I get all y'all names?
Yeah, let's start.
Yeah.